Mama, don't you think you're too old for social media? My son's words hovered in the air as his mocking face blinked back at me from my phone screen. I had opened a message he thought I'd never see and found him laughing about my photos, calling me ridiculous for trying to be part of their world at 58. The chill I felt was not from the morning breeze but from a blade through my chest. My hands shook around the phone as I read each cruel line. The coffee I'd made sat cooling on the kitchen table. Lucia's laugh drifted from the yard, unaware. This was betrayal. I would not be silent. I stayed silent, but not forgotten. That scene did not come from nowhere. It landed on the surface of my life like a stone thrown into still water, no splash, but concentric circles that reached every part of me. To understand why it hurts so much, you need to know what I carried inside me long before screens and hashtags. I live in a modest house on a calm street of Mexico City. The door is a familiar weight under my hand. It creaks the same way it has for years. The morning light slides across the tiles and finds the old wooden table, our table, the one my husband and I bought when we had nothing but a promise. I polish it sometimes, and the threadbare embroidered tablecloth from my trousseau lays folded in the drawer as if waiting for an occasion that never quite arrives. I am a nurse by trade. I worked night shifts, rotating schedules, double weekends when the bills were tight. I learned to sleep with the lights on and to bring calm when others were on the edge. When my husband died, I learned how to hold grief and keep going. Those years taught me a rhythm of giving my energy away until it felt small. I learned how to make do. I learned how to hold two jobs in a tired body and still smile to a child at breakfast. My hands tell the story better than I do. They are the catalog of years, veins that show, skin that has known long nights and steady work. When I fold a towel, I feel the memory of folding hospital sheets at 3 a.m., when the world was thin and the machines hummed like distant bees. When I cook, my fingers move in recipes that were taught by my mother and refined by years of feeding people who could barely speak. Everything I do has weight to it, everything I do has purpose. I raised 2 children on a salary that required choices. There were weeks I went without a new dress so that school fees were paid. There were months I ate simply so that a son could have transportation or books. I did not tell them about the small, private compromises. I did not want them to see the ledger where I subtracted myself. I did not want them to carry that account as a burden. Be a person of value, I told them, folding laundry. Be grateful. Be kind. That is what I taught by example, quietly, with actions. I never asked for trophies. I did my work because it mattered and because I believed that raising 2 children into decent adults was the most difficult and important thing I would ever do. When my sons were small, there were days of fever and nights of worry. I remember holding a tiny, burning body and feeling a promise settle in my bones: you will not let me down. I worked double shifts to pay for uniforms, for extra classes, for the tuition that would open doors. We ate at different times sometimes, or I took on a night shift so they could sleep in peace. Those choices were simple to me. Love looked like exhaustion and sometimes like blind courage. But love does not prevent betrayal. The truth is, I expected that the children I raised would carry some of my values forward. I expected respect. I expected the soft, ordinary courtesy that family keeps for its own. I did not expect cruelty. I did not expect that the world of social media, something I entered later in life because I wanted to be closer, to see their faces, to learn their language, would become a place where I was shaped into an object of ridicule. I have always believed that age gives perspective, not weakness. Age taught me to see the long arc of things. It taught me patience. It also taught me where the line sits between bending and breaking. Respect is not something you remind people about once. It is something you teach every day with the way you stand in the room. There is a door in my house that I keep slightly ajar at night. My mother used to say it let in the night air and also let out the heaviness of the day. That door has become a kind of symbol to me. It is small, ordinary, but it holds space. When I discovered the album my son made of my photos, I felt as if that door had been thrown open and the neighbors had come in, uninvited, laughing at my life. The door between private and public had been broken. My boundaries had been trampled. I do not like drama. I have never sought conflict for its own sake. But there comes a moment when keeping the peace is the same as allowing injustice. I have learned that the old saying is true: the more you keep quiet, the louder the other voices become. There was a pattern of small humiliation silences where there should have been answers, laughs in corners, shoulders turned when I asked for help that had been threading themselves together for months. When the album appeared, the thread pulled and everything unraveled. I called Gabriella that morning because she is the one who still listens before reacting. She is steady. She came with her laptop and her patient tone. We sat at the same wooden table, and I showed her the album. Her face shifted from confusion to anger in a way that felt like a current running through her. "Mama, this is wrong," she said, soft and direct. "We need to document everything." We documented. We took screenshots of the screenshots, we saved comments, we printed pages. Each print felt like a knife, but the act of printing was also an act of preservation. I started to understand the mechanics of the thing: how albums are shared, how screenshots travel, how a private question can be turned into a mockery for dozens. Gabriella taught me how to lock down my account, how to check shared albums, how to disable certain settings. Knowledge was not only clarifying, it was arming me. I called my niece Elena, who works with digital marketing. She told me, without sentimentalizing it, that this behavior is not about age, it is about cruelty and sometimes about power. Some people feel better when they pull someone down, she said. It is about control. She looked at me over a cup of coffee and said, "Tia, we are going to make sure you have the right evidence." Evidence. The word felt clinical and necessary. It removed the shapeless ache and replaced it with a list of things we could do. We organized screenshots, we saved timestamps, we exported conversations. We printed the cruelties and packed them in a manila envelope. The envelope had weight, like a ledger. It was tangible proof that something real and wrong had been done. I must tell you something here, because I believe in honesty with the people who listen to me. This channel is new for me, and your attention matters in ways I am still learning. If you are watching and you would like to support these stories, please consider subscribing. If we reach 1,000 subscribers, it helps this message find more ears. Also tell me where you are from, city and country, because I want to know who walks with me through these stories. Thank you for being here. We kept working in small, methodical steps. I learned to make my passwords stronger. I learned to look for the little signs: deleted messages, eyes that go away when my phone rings, laughs that cut off. I learned to trust my unease instead of smoothing it away. That unease had been my first alarm. It had been telling me that something was not right. Packing the prints and saving the files felt like a stewardship of myself. There is a dignity in assembling the truth. I learned to carry my own testimony like a small, steady lamp. It did not fix what was broken, but it lit the path ahead. There is an image I return to when I think of those weeks: the mantel clock in my living room. It belonged to my husband. It ticks with a small, careful rhythm. At night, sometimes, I would sit and listen to it and feel the long arc of time settle in my chest. That clock was a quiet witness to my life. It kept time while I kept going. When I thought of confronting Esteban, that clock became a witness as well. I wanted to do this with time on my side, calm, precise, dignified. I chose to invite them to dinner. I learned that my body remembers how to hold itself upright even when the tremor inside wants to fold me. There is one quiet thing I did that felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. I started a little notebook where I wrote a line every night: what I cooked, what I felt, a short sentence about gratitude. It was not performative. It was a way to keep track of myself. The pages filled with small observations became a map back to who I was before the betrayal. I am not a lawyer. I am not a crusader. I am a woman who has kept a life together with practice and stubbornness. What happened to me was a violation. It was also, I realized later, an opportunity to teach a boundary where none had been enforced. There were moments when I thought of stepping away from technology entirely, never to post another photo of my plants or my molkajit. But I decided not to give up the table just because someone spilled a drink on it. If the world is to change, sometimes the change starts with the person who was harmed standing up and saying, clearly, what is not acceptable. As I collected facts and settled my resolve, I felt something else begin to move in me. It was not anger in the cartoon sense. It was a steady, cold light that allowed me to see the shape of what I would do. I would not humiliate. I would not make an example. I would reclaim my privacy and my voice and, when necessary, my distance. That night before the dinner, I placed the manila envelope on the dining table and covered it with the embroidered cloth, my choice of small ceremony. The room smelled of mole and of orange peel simmering for dessert. I had cooked what I always cooked for them because it was part of the ritual of our Sundays. I wanted everything to look ordinary, so that there would be no excuse. The ordinary element was the stage where the extraordinary truth would be revealed. I folded my hands on my lap and waited. The clock on the mantel kept ticking. I breathed in the hum of the house. I was calm. I was ready. I would not be silent any longer. 3 months before that night, Sundays were the axis of our small orbit. They felt sacred in a way that is easy to take for granted until they change. The ritual was simple. I woke early, the house slow and warm, and I set about making mole. The air would fill with chocolate and chiles and the slow comfort of time spent stirring. Lucia would come running, hair in a messy knot, and the day would begin. The table was the center. We ate there. We laughed there. The table bore the small scars of years, a burn mark from a pan, a ring where a glass had been set down carelessly. The embroidered cloth came out for Sundays. My hands smoothed it like a prayer. In those mornings, the house had a golden hush, a safe quiet that comes when neighbors are in their own routines. This particular Sunday, the light came through the window in the way that makes everything look like an old photograph, soft, forgiving. Esteban arrived with a smile that seemed to come from new money. "Mama, I'm getting a promotion," he said, between mouthfuls, as if that detail should rearrange the world. Daniela showed photos of furniture on her phone, chairs with clean lines and cushions that would cost more than I'd spend in a year. I felt a small tug of pride, the way a parent does when a child stands taller. I felt the old satisfaction that someone I loved had found stability. But there was also a shadow in the room that I could not name then. When Lucia glanced at my old phone on the counter, she asked with the same bluntness children have, "Abuelita, when are you going to get a decent phone? With that dinosaur you can't even watch my TikTok." Everyone laughed like it was a light jab. I laughed with them. I told them, with a smile, that perhaps I would. Esteban offered, casually, "I'll buy you one for your birthday." His voice was easy. His promise sounded like inclusion, and for a woman who had spent years building the scaffolding under others, inclusion tasted like honey. A week later he gave me the phone. I remember the way the box felt, wrapped in thin paper, his smile as he handed it to me. I felt seen. I felt part of something I had been trying to understand. I learned it with Gabriella's help: how to swipe, how to open an app, where to set limits. There was a small triumph in the first selfie I took, my hand slightly trembling as I angled the camera. I smiled into the screen, trying to capture the roundness of a life that still held pleasures. That moment of being seen was quickly eroded by small looks and murmurs. I did not catch the first ones at first. They were as light as a moth's wing, a flutter at a party that you do not notice until you stand quiet afterwards. Esteban and Daniela would exchange a glance when I took a photo. A smile would slide into something else. Conversations would pause. The world seemed to be rearranging itself around a newer style, one that did not make room for my clumsy joy. I remember a Thursday at their apartment. We were invited for dinner. Esteban was in the kitchen stirring something, on his phone. I sat at the table, Lucia on the floor drawing. From the kitchen, his voice carried, casual and sharp. "Did you see what my mom posted?" he said. I did not hear Daniela's answer, only laughter that swelled and spilled into the living room. The sound caught in my chest like a fist. A small conflict. I asked a recipe question in the family WhatsApp that week. It went unanswered. Not ignored by mistake, ignored with the little signs that say, "We don't have to reply." Daniela's messages to me became shorter. Answers became emojis rather than words. The small courtesies I had always been given in the past transformed into a kind of distance. The cumulative effect of small dismissals carved out a place where it was easy to place blame. At the bakery that week, a neighbor crossed the street when she saw me. Her eyes flicked to my phone in my hand and then away. She seemed embarrassed, as if she had been caught on a private phone call that turned public. Gossip moves in small, cold ways. It does not announce itself. It is a whisper at the market, a look at a party, a message that arrives and then disappears. Those tiny cuts begin to make a wound. I remember Lucia one afternoon, playing with my phone. She looked up and said, "Abuelita, did you know Dad shares your photos in a group?" Her voice was casual. Her face, at once, held an odd flicker of knowing and of worry. I stopped peeling oranges and felt the peel slip from my hand like a small white flag falling. I asked her what she meant. She shrugged and said, "He shows it to his friends. They laugh." Then she went back to her game, as if the news was just another small fact of the world. Another scene, the birthday of my sister. Family gathered. Laughter, the clink of plates, the smell of vanilla cake. Several cousins sat together, scrolling, laughing at something. I moved closer out of instinctful curiosity and felt a dozen eyes through the screens look away at once. My presence made the laughter stop, and the hush felt like a place where I didn't belong. Elena, my honest niece, met my eyes and gave a look of apology that tasted like betrayal from a stranger. These moments stacked on top of each other. They were not explosive, they were corrosive. They took the ordinary fabric of family and friable it thread by thread. I began to catalog them in my mind. At first I told myself I was imagining things. That was how denial worked: small, polite, protective. "Don't make a mountain out of a molehill," I said to myself, ironing a blouse late at night. But the list grew, the silence to my messages, the disappearing laughs, the jokes in corners that shortened when I approached. I recall a minor scene that felt larger as time went on. I was in the kitchen, making chocolate, and Lucia had my phone to play a game. She handed it back and, with child's bluntness, said, "Dad has a group where he shares your photos." I paused, stirring the pot, and felt heat that was not only from the stove. Why would he do that? I asked, steady on the outside. She shrugged and said, "For fun. So his friends can laugh." The words landed like small stones. Kaylee, but neo skc. I kept quiet, but I did not forget. I had been the one who stayed up, who checked temperatures, who whispered medicine and hope. And now, there was a tweet, a screenshot, a private album that had used my life for a laugh. The tension that accumulated finally reached a small tipping point on a quiet weekday. Gabriella had called earlier, with worry in her voice. "Mama, there are things being said," she had told me. She did not say more. There are moments when a daughter's tone is enough to unlace all the calm. I went to bed early and woke before dawn, because some instincts do not belong to scheduled sleep. I found myself reaching for my phone. I told myself I would be practical. I would check settings. I would look at the photos. I would not go looking to hurt or to make spectacle. But under the rational exterior there was a tremor, expectant dread. When I opened the Photos app, because he had set up the phone and because I trusted him, I did not expect to find an album titled like a cruel lecture, something clinical and mocking. When I saw the name, my breath stopped for a beat. The room seemed to tilt. I sat there on the edge of my bed, the phone a small rectangle of light. I had never felt so small and so betrayed in the same pulse. The evidence I had suspected was there, in pixels and comments. I could hear Lucia playing in the yard as if nothing had shifted. The ordinary world continued, but inside me, a part of the house had already closed. I did not act then. I put the phone down and walked to the kitchen and touched the door, my mother's old habit about doors and air. The door was slightly ajar, like the way I kept it when I wanted the night to breathe. I leaned my forehead against the wood for a moment and felt the steady tick of the mantel clock through the floor. Something inside that day changed in a way that could not be undone. The quiet suspicion hardened into a resolve. I would not sweep this under carpet. I would not be the punchline of their private jokes. I was going to gather the truth the way one gathers medicine, clean, precise, necessary. That afternoon I sat with my hands folded and the sun on my lap, and I made a decision I would carry forward. I would prepare. I would learn. I would not become small. I would not be laughed at behind my back any longer. And then I opened the photos again. Las semanas que siguieron fueron pequeñas erosiones, no terremotos. Sentí como la casa, la gente y las costumbres se movían a mi alrededor como si yo fuera un mueble al que ya no miran. Cuando publicaba una foto de las plantas en la ventana, esperaba un "qué bonita" y recibía silencio. Cuando compartía una receta, buscaba el cariño en un comentario y solo jalaba el vacío de una conversación que se detenía. Empieza a notar detalles que antes me parecían inocentes. Esteban estaba siempre en línea, pero sus reacciones eran un gesto ausente, una notificación y nada más. Daniela respondía con emojis cortos donde antes había palabras. Lucia me miraba con la naturalidad de una niña, pero a veces su mirada se detenía en mi teléfono como si viera una película en la que no era la protagonista sino el personaje secundario ridiculizado. Esos silencios pequeños se convirtieron en una cartografía de desprecio. Una tarde en su casa, mientras preparaban la cena, escuché su voz desde la cocina como una cucharada envuelta en humor falso. ¿Viste lo que publicó mi mamá? No debería estar en Instagram, que vieja sve. La risa que siguió hizo eco en mi pecho. Me quedé en la mesa con la servileta en las manos, y el mundo siguió como si nada. Mi saliva supo a metal. Me contuve para no preguntar, para no pedir explicaciones que sabía que no llegarían. Respire y me invent excusas, está cansado, y es broma. Guard la palabra. Kaliai, mas neo skc. Esa phrase se anido en mi pecho como un mantra. No por orgullo, sino por habito. Había aprendido a calar muchas veces, por economía, por paz, por no restar era la familia. Aprendí a hacer de la paciencia una parte de vida. Pero la paciencia, cuando se confunde con sumisión, se transforma en cemento que encierra una herida. En la panadería del barrio, una vecina que antes saludaba con la bolsa en mano desvió la mirada. Era un gesto chico, parecía una cortija torpe, pero me atravesó como un hilo. Me sorprendió la rapidez con la que el rumor puede vestir a la gente de indiferencia. En la pequeña sala donde esperábamos turno para pagar, un joven de 20 años, que no me conoce de nada, soltó un comentario al pasar, algunos no deberían estar en redes. No lo digo con ira, lo digo como quien anuncia una verdad común. El golpe fue doble, no era solo mi familia, era también esa corriente social que minimiza por edad. Las conversaciones en la familia cambiaron de tono. Las preguntas se volvieron cortas. Los favors, escasos. Daniela contestaba con monosyllabos y Esteban miraba su teléfono más de lo que me miraba a mí. En el cumpleaños de mi hermana, varios sobrinos se rieron con un brillo cómplice cuando alguien mostró algo en la pantalla. Me acerqué y las risas cesaron. El silencio que quedó no fue de disculpa, fue un silencio de huida. Elena me miró y sus ojos buscaron excusas que no existen. Su expresión fue una mezcla de pena y vergüenza que me dolió más que cualquier ofensa directa. Ese mismo día, al regresar a casa, encontré a Lucia llegando en el patio con mi teléfono. Me dijo, sin levantar la vista, abuelita, papá tiene un grupo donde comparte tus fotos. La frase flotó entre el olor del mole que se enfriaba en la cocina y el polvo del patio. Puse las manos en la mesa y sentí como el mantel bordado se arrugaba bajo mis dedos. Le pregunté como lo sabía. Levantó los ojos, con la ingenuidad de quien no entiende la gravedad, y se encogió de hombres. Es para reírse, dijo. Sus palabras eran un fósforo que encendía algo que levaba apagado, la certeza de que yo estaba siendo objeto de un espectáculo. Guard esa chispa como se guarda una prueba que aún no se muestra. No reacción en ese momento porque sabía que la furia desordenada no me serviría. Preferí hacer lo que siempre había hecho, documentar, observar, organizar. Tomé notas mentales con la calma de quien ha pasado noches de guardia en hospital, registrar signos, tiempos, patrones. Cada omisión y cada risa eran una anotación más en un cuaderno invisible. En el trabajo, los murmullos me alcanzaron como un viento frío. Un joven enfermero, nuevo en la guardia, dijo caer una broma sobre mayores y reeds justo cuando pasaba. Había alguna gente que consideraba esto gracioso, otros, simplemente miraban hacia otro lado. La profesional que soy se abrió paso entre esa corriente y me obligó a recordar que la experiencia no es desuso. Me acuerdo de la vez que sostuve la mano de un recién nacido a las 3 a.m., y pensé que la tecnología era otra trinchera donde debía saber estar para no ceder terreno. Empecé a hacer pequeñas defensas cotidianas. Cambié contraseñas. Ordene las fotos en carpetas privadas. Pregunta Gabriela sobre ajustes de privacidad que antes ni me miraba. Ella tuvo un gesto de alivio, por fin, dijo, como si algo que le pasaba desde me acord de los panos húmedos en la frente de Esteban cuando tuvo fiebre de niño. Mis 6 preparando emparados para que llevara a la universidad, recortando gastos para pagar una matrícula. Cada recuerdo fue un escenario que se contraponía a la mezquindad de esos textos. Se me juntaron las manos en el regazo y sentí la vibración de las lágrimas contenidas. No puede ser, susurró en voz baja, como si nombrarlo fuera dar más fuerza. Pero era cierto. La pantalla no mentia. Había quedado atrapada en las imágenes y en la sonrisa como si fuera un trofeo. La traición tenía nombre y fecha. Tenía risas y cadenas de emojis que la celebraban. Había sido regalada un teléfono que, a la postre, sirvió para exhibir. Mi primera reacción fue el silencio absoluto. No lame, no confront, no rompí nada. Camino a la cocina y apoyé la frente en la puerta entreabierta. La madera estaba tibia por el sol que había entrado esa mañana. Cerré los ojos y dejé que el latido en el cuello se calmara. Decidí no dejar que la emoción temprana se transformara en algo que pudiera ser usado contra mí. No quería que dijeran que yo exageraba, que no entendía, que era dramática. Pero la calma era solo la segunda piel del temblor que sentía. Busqué la libreta que había empezado a leer con pequeñas anotaciones, fechas, comentarios, quien reaccionó, quien compartió. Levé la libreta y el teléfono a la habitación y abrí el cajón donde había guardado el sobre de Manila. Sac las impresiones que Gabriela había impreso. Las hojas crujeron como si quisieran contar la verdad antes de que yo la pronunciara. Pues una a una sobre la calma. No fue un acto de espectáculo. Fue un acto de higiene. La verdad, cuando duele, es limpia. Registrar era como vender una herida antes de poder curarla. Empieza a ordenar las impresiones por fecha. Había un patrón, no era un arrabado aislado, era un archivo de humiliaciones. Y eso lo cambiaba todo. No era renser lo que sentía, era la obligación de la dignidad. Me acuerdo entonces de mi madre, el respeto no se mendiga, se exige. Esa frase legó como una brújula. Tenía que decidir con claridad que quería y hasta donde llegaría. No quería destruir una familia por venganza. Quería establecer límites y reclamar lo que me pertenecía, privacidad, consideración, el derecho a fallar sin ser expuesta. Quería que tuviesen que mirar esas hojas y dejar de ocultar tras, era una broma. Las llamadas que hice después fueron precisas. Gabriela al principio llamó con agitada tenura, Mama, ¿está segura? Y yo le mostré la pantalla. Elena vino con su port decidido, y juntas guardamos todo en varios soportes, USB, impresiones, copias en la nube. No nos dejamos llevar por la indignación de la primera hora, nos dedicamos a reproducir las pruebas de forma que fueran incontestables. En cada acción repetí una frase en mi cabeza, si algo tiene que cambiar, será con pruebas y con calma. No se me ocurrió ir a la comisaría de inmediato. Aprendí que hay pasos prudentes, documentar, entender la vía digital, asesorarme. Hablé con Elena sobre líneas de tiempo, sobre cómo descargar metadatos, cómo demostrar que las imágenes estaban en un álbum compartido. Ella tomo notas con la misma calma que había mostrado mi hija menor cuando me encenaba un botón del teléfono. Firme, práctica. Nos enseñó que los datos tienen una lógica y que la mejor defensa es la claridad. El viernes por la noche llamó Esteban. Quería ver su reacción antes de llamar al resto. La voz al teléfono sonaba normal, sin sombra. Le dije, ven a cenar, y el aceptó con esa confianza de quien no sabe que será confrontado. No quis decir nada por mensaje. Quería que la conversación fuese en la mesa donde tantas cosas habían sido celebradas. Quería el contexto que nos había existido antes de que la humiliación irrumpiera. Prepare la comida como siempre, con la normalidad deliberada de quien aguarda una tormenta pero mantiene la casa en orden. El mantel, el reloj, los platos, todo dispuesto para que no hubiera excusa para la farsa. Mi cocina olía a mol y naranja, y yo respiraba cada olor como un ancla. Cuando entraron, traje las pruebas en un sobre discreto. No hice ruido al ponerlo sobre la mesa. Tampoco lo abrí. Esperé que la conversación llegara a ese punto que yo ya conocía, el póster, la calma artificial, la mirada distraída. Cuando saqué el teléfono y deslice la primera captura hacia su vista, six como el color se lo iba de la cara. No hubo palabras al principio. Los segundos que siguieron fueron una pausa larga y pesada. Había un reloj en la repisa que sonó y a mí me pareció que marcaba una separación antes de la queda. Esteban tartamudeó un intento de negación. Daniela agarró su copa de vino con manos que no eran tan firmes como antes. Lucía, en la sala, miraba la televisión sin entender del todo la gravedad que entraba por la puerta. Eso no es, comenzó Esteban, pero su voz se quebró. Lo Meyer. No quería humillarlo más con un ataque, quería que viera su acto. Sac el sobre y extendí una impresión sobre la mesa. ¿Es esto una broma para ti? Pregunt con la calma de quien ha escrito cada palabra en su cuaderno. Fue un momento de verdad. Esteban se tapó la cara con las manos. Hubo solozos. Hubo explicaciones que sonaron pequeñas ante la evidencia. Hubo promesas rápidas y lágrimas como si la culpa pudiera deshacerse con ellas. Pero en ese instante comprobó algo esencial, el arrepentimiento no borra el daño. La sinceridad no regresa los momentos en los que te convirtieron en un objeto de risa. Le dije exactamente lo que sentía, que me dolía la traición de su risa, que me dolía haber sido un motivo de diversión y no de respeto. Le hablé de noches en vela, de sacrificios que no deberían ser moneda de cambio para un espectáculo. No quis alargar la escena en un teatro de culpas, quis que se entendiera el peso. El loro. Pidió perdón. Yo escuch. No devolví la escena con ataques y con el drama que muchos esperarían. Explique que había tomado medidas, que las pruebas estaban impresas, guardadas, y que no solo esperaba una disculpa, sino acciones concretas. Le pedí que eliminara el álbum delante de mí y que borrara las capturas. Le pedí también que hablara con sus amigos y con Daniela para explicar y reparar. Fue un requerimiento simple, responsabilidad. Lo que no pedí en la mesa fue más castigo. Pedí límites y respeto. Esa noche no fue un ajuste inmediato sino el inicio de un proceso. Pero algo cambió, la verdad, puesta en la mesa como papel y tinta, alteró la escena de una forma que nada de las lágrimas podía, me permití la rabia en pequeñas dosis, la descargaba frotando un trapo o sacando las alas del armario. Permití que el dolor fuera real y que la decisión de actuar fuese más clara que cualquier impulso de venganza. Había una nueva regla, no humillar para ser humillada. Mi fuerza debía ser prudente y eficaz. Esteban llamó con frecuencia en las primeras semanas. Hablamos, a veces en silencio, a veces con palabras que intentaban reconstruir lo que se había maltratado. Me contó que, después de aquella cena, había borrado el álbum y había hablado con algunos amigos. Dijo que no midió el daño que causó, que la fama de la broma lo convirtió en un acto repetitivo. Trató de explicarse, pero las explicaciones no borran. Lo escuch. Lo dije que quería ver acciones sostenidas, disculpas, conversations con los implicados, y cambios concretos en cómo se manejaba la intimidad familiar. Gabriela y yo le pedimos que llamara a cada persona que había reaccionado, no para humillarlos, sino para pedir que borren lo compartido donde fuera posible. Fue un proceso lento. Algunas personas respondieron con vergüenza, otras con indiferencia, y hubo quien simplemente ignoraron. Eso me enseñó que la reparación es desigual. No depende solo del que se arrepiente, sino de la disposición de los otros a reconocer su culpa. La relación con Daniela se transformó de una manera más pasada. Ella vino después a pedirme disculpas, en otra tarde con el sol filtrándose, y habló de la presión social de ser aceptada por su pareja, de cómo a veces siguió la corriente sin medir el daño. No la perdón de inmediato, pero abrí un espacio para que su arrepentimiento se sostuviera en acciones, pedirme perdón en privado, pedir disculpas a quien hizo daño, y, sobre todo, pedir ayuda para que Lucia entendiera lo que había pasado. Ella aceptó. No fue un lazo recompuesto de la noche a la mañana, fue un trabajo de respeto que comenzaba. Lo que más me sorprendió fue la reacción de Lucia. Un día llegó con una joya de su escuela donde su maestra había hablado de respeto en internet. Me miró con ojos grandes, abuelita, te dijo que fuiste muy valiente. Me pidió entrevistarme para un proyecto de clase. Yo acepto. Sentí que algo de lo que había hecho se transformaba en enseñanza. Lo conté a Lucia, en palabras que pudies entender, que pasó y por que dolió. Ella me escuchó con la seriedad de quien entiende que hay límites que no se deben cruzar. Ese momento con Lucia fue como una luz pequeña en la ventana, la herida seguía abierta, pero la cicatriz empezaba a formarse. Comprendí que mi decisión no solo me afectaba a mí, afectaba a la forma en que las nuevas generaciones ven el respeto. Me di cuenta de que podía convertir mi dolor en aprendizaje. No se trataba de enseñar rencer, sino de enseñar dignidad. La gente del barrio, con el tiempo, volvió a mirarme con la misma calidez de antes en algunos casos. Otros, por prudencia o por juicio, mantuvieron distancia. En el hospital, algunos colegas empezaron a mostrarme un respeto nuevo, como si mi firmeza hubiera reescrito el lugar que me correspondía. Me llamaban por mi nombre con la misma deferencia de siempre, pero ahora con la certeza de que no debía ser la víctima de chistes baratos. Aprendí a usar la palabra limite con naturalidad. Me resultaba extraño al principio, porque toda mi vida había practicado la generosidad hasta el punto de no regenerarme. Ahora decía, no, eso no me parece bien, o, no acepto que ese publique mi vida sin mi permiso. Y la frase no queda como un reproche, queda como una descripción de lo que soy. Paradójicamente, Decker no me daba la libertad de volver a Decker, sí, cuando quería. Han pasado semanas desde aquella cena y la vida ha retomado un pulso distinto. No todo está arreglado. Hay tensions que perduran. Hay conversations que quedan por tener. Esteban y yo no hemos vuelto a la complacencia de antes. Tenemos un diálogo diferente, donde él intenta escuchar y yo intento confiar con cautela. No es una reconciliación perfecta, pero es una reconstrucción con lógica y límites. Me he permitido, también, pequeñas alegrías. Sac el cuaderno donde guardaba las recetas de mi madre y comencé a registrar las que yo he ido creando. Abrí una pequeña cuenta privada donde comparto recetas y anécdotas con un grupo reducido de gente que sabe valorar. Recibo mensajes de personas que agradecen una receta y un recuerdo, y cada uno devuelve sentido a lo que hice siempre por amor. Esa recepción me recuerdo que no todo el mundo convierte la cercanía en burla. Al cerrar este capítulo, me queda un aprendizaje claro, la edad no me hace menos humana ni menos digna. La tecnología no es el problema es el uso que algunos hacen de ella para errar. El respeto no se pierde por ser mayor, se pierde cuando se lo reina. Y cuando se rompe un vínculo, hay que tomar decisiones para cuidarse. Quiero terminar diciendo algo que me repito cuando la duda aparece. No renuncia mi curiosidad ni a mi mesa por miedo. Reclam lo que me pertenece, mi privacidad, mi dignidad, mi voz. No fue un acto de orgullo vacío, fue un acto de supervivencia con paciencia y con pruebas. Si algo de esto te resuena, cuéntame. Te han hecho sentir menos por tu edad o por lo que estás intentando aprender? Si estás aquí, dime de donde me escuchas ciudad y país. Gracias por cuidarte. The days after I found the album were quieter on the outside and frantic on the inside. I moved through the house like someone carrying fragile glass, careful, measured, always aware of the weight in my hands. The kitchen smelled of mole and orange peel, the same smells that used to anchor ordinary Sundays, but now each aroma vibrated with a new purpose. I set the printer tray with a steady hand. Paper fed through and one by one my proofs emerged, screenshots, comments, timestamps. Each sheet made a sound like a small verdict. I folded and refolded the page as if the movement could smooth the bruise inside me. My fingers knew the rhythm of work, they had known it my whole life. But this was different work, administrative, meticulous, purposeful, and it felt like constructing a bridge where once there had only been a rickety rope. Gabriella sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open between us. She had the habit of tapping the edge of the keyboard when she was thinking, a steady, small percussion that kept me anchored. She taught me how to export albums, how to pull the metadata from photos, how to download conversations so they would bear the date and the author like a stamp of truth. Metadata gives you the story behind the picture, she said, not like an academic but like someone handing over a lifeline. Her thumbnail hovered over the screen, then clicked, and a file bloomed: photo ID, device, upload time. I learned that what appears casual online can be audited like a bill at the bank. We made copies, USB drives, cloud folders, a printed set in the manila envelope I had taken from the drawer. The manila envelope looked ordinary until you held it, then it seemed to carry all the weight of what had been said. I labeled things in my handwriting: chronology, screenshots, messages, participants. The loop of my letters was steady, the way I'd once written medicine dosages when I worked night shifts at the hospital. At the same time, I spoke with a lawyer recommended by Elena Short, clear consultations by phone at first. We discussed what the evidence would need to show: intent, repetition, exposure. The lawyer spoke plainly about options: cease and desist, formal apologies, requests to platforms to remove content, and, if necessary, a civil claim. She did not promise dramatic endings. She promised process. While this technical work advanced, I started to change small things at home that signaled new boundaries. I reconfigured my phone two-step verification, restricted sharing settings, removed any albums that were open to others. I taught myself to lock folders and to recognize the difference between backup and shared album. A sense of quiet empowerment grew with each setting I changed. I also set a rule: certain conversations would only happen face-to-face. They could not be edited, they could not be turned into screenshots after the fact. I wanted the gravity of the room when truth was spoken. There were practicalities that felt both mundane and enormous. I hid a spare charger in the drawer behind the sugar, a place no one would think to look. I labeled a second USB with "Do Not Open," as if the label itself would make the evidence more sacred. Small measures, modest barricades. Gabriella helped me organize a timeline. We spread the printed pages across the dining table and mapped them in chronological order. Dates became a chain, one comment linked to another, and the album's mockery took the shape of an archive. It was horrifying and clarifying to see the story laid out like that: no fog, no excuses. The chronology made the cruelty systematic. We rehearsed a conversation not to manipulate feelings but to ensure clarity. I wanted sentences that could not be walked back with charm. Those are my private messages. That album was created to humiliate me. I will not accept being treated like a joke. These were simple sentences, but I practiced them until they landed steady in my mouth. At the same time, I rehearsed softer phrases for Lucia and for Daniela because I did not want to build walls where a bridge could be repaired. There is a line between education and punishment. I wanted to stand on the first. I did not want revenge disguised as justice. Neighbors noticed the increased comings and goings: my niece with her work laptop, Elena with her marketing notes. A shopkeeper down the street, Mrs. Mora, left a bag of oranges on my doorstep one afternoon with a note: keep cooking. Keep strong. Little acts of solidarity appeared like small green shoots. They did not erase the hurt, they nourished something within me. I also called a woman from a community center that offered workshops on digital literacy for older adults. She talked about privacy, consent, and online harassment in plain terms. I joined an online forum, quiet and anonymous, where other elders shared stories. Their words were not dramatic, they were practical, and their collective experience made my own problem feel part of a larger pattern and therefore something that could be named and addressed. There were moments when my resolve wavered. At night I would find myself sitting on the edge of the bed and feeling the old ache of betrayal press hard. Memories of Esteban as a child, faint coughs, fevered forehead, bread crusts warmed in the palm of my hand rose up with bitter contrast. But the next morning the list waited. One morning I received a message from a woman I had once nursed at the hospital. She wrote simply, "I saw your recipes online. Your mole brought me home tonight. I'm so sorry people hurt you." I read that message and let it steady me. Kindness was its own kind of truth. The smallest technical steps grew into a ritual as precise as any I had learned in the hospital: label, copy, double check. I wrote the names of people who had reacted to the album, where they worked, whether they were family, friends, or colleagues. I called a few of them quietly, asking that they remove what they had shared. Some complied, some apologized, some ignored. The mosaic of responses showed the unevenness of repair. Daniela reached out in a message, short, flustered, then later longer and softer. She asked for a meeting away from Esteban. I did not expect to forgive easily. I expected to listen. I also knew that apology alone was not a plan. I wanted to see accountability. All the while, I thought about the small things I had lost in the exchange of unquestioning trust. My phone had been a gift. In the hands of the person who gave it, it had been a weapon. The juxtaposition made me careful with future gifts. It made me insist, gently but firmly, on privacy as a non-negotiable. At the end of a week filled with preparation, I wrote a short letter to myself and tucked it in the manila envelope. It said, simply, "You will speak with clarity. You will hold the line. You are not alone." The handwriting looked like a stranger's, older, firmer. I had arranged the dinner. I had the proofs. I had the support. I had the plan. What I did not have was certainty about how hearts would change, or whether regret would be enough. That is the precarious place where many brave things live. I set the table the way I always had: plates, cloth, the old clock on the shelf catching the light. At 7 p.m. they would come. I would place a page, not open, on the table beside my plate. It would be a quiet signal that the night did not belong to routine. I reheated the mole with measured hands, feeling the muscles in my arms remember decades of motion. The house held its breath with me. When I slid the kitchen door closed against the late afternoon, I felt, for a moment, like a woman going to sign a deed. They came. And the door that night was a threshold I had crossed with intention. I pushed the voices of doubt aside long enough to clear the space on the table. I put the manila envelope at my place and set the napkin beside it. The light over the table was soft, an ally to truth. I served the mole, and the house smelled like an old promise. I would speak. But first, I would let the evidence speak for me. I waited. They walked in, unaware that the ordinary would not return that night. The fork of what had been and what could be sat beside the manila envelope. They sat down. I took a breath and reached for the phone. I opened the first file. When Esteban saw the first screenshot, color left his face. He put a hand to his mouth like a child caught with a secret. He thought this would be a plea. He did not know that I had built my case like someone building a house, slowly, with good foundations and with the intention of living in it for a long time. I set the phone down. The room dipped into a heavy, true silence. They had joked. They had made a stage of my life. They were about to be shown the script. I took the manila envelope and I put the envelope on the table and unfolded the first printed page. The paper sat there, white and unadorned, like a small, obstinate truth. My hands did not shake as I passed it to Esteban. He read in silence. His reading face was the one I had known since he was small, focused, then blanched. It was the face of a man meeting something he could not charm away. "Is this," he started, words tripping. "Yes," I answered simply. "It is everything." I watched the micro-movements, the tilt of his head, the way his mouth shaped a new word, the tightness at the corner of his eyes that has always appeared when he desperately wants another person's approval. For years that desperation had led him to success and to selfishness. Tonight, it landed on me. Daniela's hand trembled around her wine glass. Lucia sat on the edge of a chair, quiet, her voice absent from the air where jokes once lived. Gabriella stood by me as a steady presence, her jaw set like a small fortress. I began with facts, because facts are the scaffolding of justice and the armor of dignity. I did not let my voice wobble into melodrama. I explained how I had found the album, what it contained, who had reacted, and the timeline Gabriella and I had compiled. "These are private messages," I said. "These were mine to ask for help and to trust. They were made into material for laughter." I watched. She said she had followed Esteban's lead, that she had wanted to belong in the laughter he loved, that she had not thought it through. It was not an excuse. It was a confession. "You hurt me," I said, not loud but precise. "Not because I am fragile. Because I trusted you." At that, there was a pause that felt like the house testing its structure. Lucia, finally, spoke softly, clearly. "Abuelita," she said, "my teacher told us about respect online. I didn't know it could hurt someone like this." Her small voice was a salve. She had heard something in school that had landed right. I asked Esteban to call the people who had shared and reacted. "Not to humiliate," I said, "but to ask them to remove what they can and to tell the truth about why it was wrong." He said he would. He made a long list on his phone with shaky letters. I asked Daniela to send personal apologies to the people whose messages she had shared. She promised, and the promise came with a trembling of shame that looked more like a start than a closure. But I also wanted something else. I wanted a public gesture of repair. Not a post meant to save face. Posts can be curated, but something that taught responsibility. I asked that a written apology be posted in the group where the album had circulated, not to shame but to undo, as best as a few words can undo a chain of sharing. Esteban agreed and began to type. As he typed, I watched him learn the slowness of the repair. He took longer than I would have expected. He tried on words and found them wanting. He tried to be clever and found it cheap. He tried to be sincere and found it hard. "You must show changes," I told him. "Words are not enough." He nodded and promised to call each person in the chain. "I will take it down," he said. "I will ask them to delete, and I will explain." He didn't yet see how deep the fissures ran, the way people's laughter can make them blind to damage, but he had, at least, begun to step forward. There were other requests. I asked that he attend, with me and Gabriella, a workshop on digital responsibility being offered at the community center. I asked that he speak to Lucia's class, not because he wanted to be shamed, but because I wanted him to tell his story in front of younger ears, as a lesson. He agreed, and I saw the relief that comes from action. Then there was the practical measure I had prepared with Elena and the lawyer. I asked Esteban, in full view of everyone, to delete the album while I watched. He opened the app and his hands trembled. It was a small theater of action, the deletion of a folder, but it was decisive. I watched the album vanish from the screen, its ghost remaining in printed form on the table like a fossil. "Done," he said, the word flat and unexpectedly small. I did not rise to applaud. The deletion did not erase the fact it had been there. But it did matter. It was a start. After that, I presented the list of people I wanted him to call. Slow, persistent conversation. I wanted him to explain how the laughter had stripped a human being of dignity, to name the effect on a woman who had been a mother and a nurse and who had given everything without spectacle. I wanted him to understand that sometimes the joke is the last thing one sees before dignity is lost. He made the calls. Some answered and apologized. Some did not pick up. Some said, "It was just a joke," and then ended the call. The range of response taught me about the unevenness of repair. Not everyone wanted to be responsible. Then the conversation turned inward and we touched the tough, small things about our family life that had enabled this. I said that gifts like a phone do not come with the right to parent a life for someone else. A present is not a permission to document, to share, to make private things public. Esteban listened, truly listened, in a way that felt like a new muscle flexing. He confessed, finally, that he had taken our differences in age as a kind of license to laugh, and arrogance I recognized as his fear that life was shrinking around him. I told him that shame is not the best teacher, remorse paired with action is. The evening went on into talk that was at times painful and at times oddly redemptive. We spoke of boundaries, of what privacy meant in a family, of promises to consult before sharing, of the lines between teasing and exclusion. We wrote a short family charter, simple commitments on how we would treat each other, things like ask before sharing, respect private messages, speak directly if something hurts. It was small, but in that smallness there was a structure, and structure is how you build new habits. As the night moved toward its end, Esteban took my hands in his. He was quieter now, the panic had settled into a patient resolve. I am sorry, Mama, he said again, as if rehearsing a song he could not yet own. This time I heard something different, not the frantic attempt to soothe, but the start of accountability. He left with a promise to begin making amends and to accompany his words with acts. Lucia hugged me and whispered, Abuelita, I'm proud of you. Gabriela held my shoulder like a brace, a small, constant strength. When they had gone and the house settled into that peculiar hush of an evening after storms, I sat at the table and put my palm on the manila envelope. The papers inside had done their work. They had made the truth visible. But the night had not been a conclusion so much as a start. I had asked for responsible action, I had demanded boundaries. They had been set. Now the work to make them stick would happen in the slow hours, phone calls, apologies, workshops, changed behavior. The manila envelope remained on the table like evidence of a boundary that had finally been made visible. I switched off the light over the table and let the house breathe. When the next morning came, there were messages, some cautious, some contrite. But not everyone responded the way I hoped. And some relationships, I understood in a way that was both clear and sorrowful, would never return to the way they had been. Change is not a single night, it is 1,000 small acts. I had witnessed the first ones. I had also seen the cost. The door closed behind them with a sound that felt final in a new way. But the house was not hollow. It held the notes, the promises, the list of people who needed to be called. The work had only begun. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cool. Outside, laundry hung like a chorus of small domestic affirmations. Inside, I began to write down what I would say to the places where the album had reached beyond our family, friends, neighbors, the small circle of people who had seen private texts and thought it entertainment. I made the calls. Some accepted my request to remove content. Some said they did not realize and apologized. Some were stubborn and argued that it was no big deal, as if humiliating someone were a trivial pastime. Then Esteban called out of my hearing and spoke with a man he had not spoken to in years, an old friend who had reacted with a laughing emoji. He explained the hurt. He asked the friend to do better. The friend apologized. It was quiet work, punctual, sober, repetitive. It did not feel like a victory so much as a duty waking itself into habit. A week later I received an unexpected visit from Elena and a neighbor, Mrs. Mora, who had learned the outline of the story and wanted to offer support. They brought me a jar of homemade mole paste and a list of resources for others who had been hurt online. You're not alone, Elena said, and it was a small phrase that carried a lot of weight. And then the patchwork began, a call to the school, a conversation with a manager where someone had reacted to the album, an email to a community group asking them to consider a workshop on online respect. Through it all, I kept one small rule: do not humiliate to humiliate. There is a cheap pleasure in making someone feel the same pain you felt. I wanted better than that. I wanted repair, education, boundaries. Weeks passed. Some people disappeared from our lives. Some stayed and tried harder. Esteban called less like a man apologizing and more like a man trying to be better. His calls were longer and often practical. He wanted to know how he could help older people in the neighborhood set up privacy settings. He wanted to accompany me to the workshop at the community center. He came with me. The notebook was heavier now, full of lists and contacts, notes about privacy settings, about support groups. It was less about surviving and more about building. I also discovered that the manila envelope had become a strange kind of talisman. It sat on a shelf, not hidden, not flaunted, visible. It reminded me that proof matters, that memory can be kept outside of the ephemeral screen, and that when wrongs are made visible, they can be addressed. There were things I could not control. There were people who would never admit the harm. But I could control my steps. I could measure my actions. I could teach and protect and hold limits. A new rhythm entered the house. It had more caution and more honesty. It had fewer laughs aimed at the expense of others. I had asked for respect. I had insisted on boundaries. They had been set. Now they must be honored. There was one final quiet change I made that no one saw until weeks later. I unclipped the old watch my husband had given me and polished it until it shone like a small sun. Then I wound it and put it back on. It was a small gesture, a way to remember who I am aside from the roles others had given me. The watch reminded me that time passes slowly, that patience is a posture, and that dignity demands maintenance. Months after that dinner, life had altered but not broken. Repairs were imperfect, but they were real. I had learned to take small, consistent steps toward protection and toward teaching others. And still an ache remained. Some wounds do not fully close. They form a scar that becomes a map and a lesson. I kept cooking. I kept the table ready. But I kept the envelope too. It was not meant to be a weapon. It was meant to be a record. The record changed everything. The record was now its own quiet kind of justice. And I was not done. There were more calls to make, more workshops to attend, more people to teach about the fragile line between humor and harm. I had broken the silence. Now I had to build something new from it. The work continued. And 3 months after that night at the table, I opened my small blog and typed a recipe. It was, in its way, a claim that my life, my stories, and my work would not be reduced to a joke. I hit publish and waited. The first comment came from Lucia, "Love you, Abuelita." The second came from a neighbor, "Thank you for teaching us." The third, weeks later, was from a stranger on the other side of the city, "Your mole reminded me of my grandmother." Those messages stitched a little bit of meaning back into the rupture. But there were also consequences I had not expected. Dinner invitations got quieter, some acquaintances kept their distance, and in the hospital where I used to be seen as indefatigable, a few co-workers glanced at me with a new respect that carried the weight of understanding. I had asked for respect and boundaries. They had come with a cost. I had not wanted to make an example of my son, yet a lesson had to be taught. There would be more days where I would need to balance compassion and firmness. It would not always be clean. One morning, a week after the blog had small ripples of attention, Esteban knocked on my door with a small stack of envelopes. They were apologies handwritten, mailed by the people he had asked to speak. Some were clumsy, some were eloquent. All of them were small offerings. He set them on the table and we read them together. Some required translation into action. We sat across from each other and I realized that the dinner had been a hinge. It had opened a door that could not be shut again. It had also set a pattern. When something broke, we would bear the ache and work to fix it, not hide it. The manila envelope remained on the shelf, within reach. It had been a tool and it was now part of the architecture of care. There were no miraculous healings. But there was a new architecture, rules, practices, a few more conversations that were honest and slow. And that, I decided, was how repair had to begin. The phone rang once, late that night. It was Esteban. "Do you want to come over tomorrow?" "I tried the mole, and it's not the same," he said, with a laugh that was small and earnest. "I'd like to taste it," I said, and the sound in his voice told me that his way of belonging had shifted. I hung up and sat in the dark for a moment. Then I went to the kitchen and stirred a pot, not to mend the past but to keep making the present. There is an art to holding a wound without letting it consume you. I was learning it each day. The house felt different now again, not lesser, not untouched, but more honest. That honesty was a fragile thing. It would take tending. And I would tend it. There was one more thing to do, to look at the printed pages one more time and to file them, not to punish, but to remember the moment when I chose to stand. I slid them back into the envelope. I wrote a note on the outside, "Keep for records. Keep for lessons." Then I closed the envelope and set it high enough on the shelf that it was visible but not in the way of daily life. I had made my point, I had set my limits, and now the horizon of what would come next depended on small acts repeated with integrity. That night, I lit a small lamp and wrote in my notebook, "Keep teaching. Keep cooking. Keep setting boundaries." It was a short list, but enough for the next day. Because life after a rupture is not a single victory. It is a series of small choices. The next morning I woke early and started the mole again, and the house smelled like a new kind of courage. Outside, somewhere down the street, someone laughed at nothing and someone else chose to look up and notice the world in a softer way. The work was never over. But it had a shape now. I closed the notebook and walked to the window. There were small signs of repair in the neighborhood, a neighbor helping another with groceries, a child being taught to ask permission. Those small signs did not erase the harm, but they did bulwark against its repetition. I tightened the cloth around my wrists and picked up the wooden spoon. There would be more conversations. There would be days of doubt. But tonight, the mole would taste like a life being defended. I prepared the plate and set it under the lamp on the table. The house hummed with ordinary things, and somewhere between the ordinary and the extraordinary the steady work of living and teaching continued. I was ready to keep going. But the next choice I made would be one I had not anticipated, to tell this story beyond my table, to use the small blog and the school talk and the neighborhood meetings as a way to turn pain into education. I wrote again, slowly, and pressed publish. The words went out like a small lantern into the night. And then I waited for the world to answer. There were replies gentle at first, then stronger. People wrote to say they had been through something similar, to ask how they could help their parents, to ask what to say to their children. I answered. There were long evenings of messages. There was work to do. I had turned evidence into action. It was the only justice that felt true. Weeks later, a neighbor came by with a small bag of fresh oranges and a note, "Thank you for standing up." It made a difference. I hung the note on the fridge like a medal. The house was quieter now, but in a new way. It was the hush that comes when the labor of reparation is ongoing and serious. I sat down and wrote the next entry for the blog about boundaries and dignity, and when I finished I shut the laptop and went to bed. It had been months since the album had first appeared, and though things were not all healed, the map of our family had changed for the better. The last thing I did before I fell asleep was to touch the envelope on the shelf. I whispered to myself, not as a prayer but as a promise, I will keep my dignity. I will keep teaching. Outside, somewhere far from my kitchen table, laughter moved on like weather, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel. Inside, I had built a small shelter. I had learned that the shield of proof simple, paper, chronological was a beginning, not an end. I had also learned that love is not the same as permission to hurt. The night held that lesson with me. And when morning came, I rose to cook again. I would keep cooking. I would keep teaching. I would keep the envelope for when truth needed to be I sat at the table, the paper in my hands, and felt something quietly mend inside my chest. Words had traveled, landed, and given courage back. It was small, private, and it changed the tone of the day. The weeks after the dinner had woven themselves into a different pattern. Esteban and I spoke more openly, with less defensiveness and more curiosity. He called to ask how to change a privacy setting, and I taught him over the phone, patient and precise. There was humility in his questions. There was also a willingness I had not seen before. Gabriella continued to be the steady light at my shoulder. She checked access logs and taught me how to archive records safely. Elena ran a small workshop at the community center and invited me to speak. The workshop had 20 people, some old friends and some strangers, and it became a place where experience met practical instruction. The hospital where I had spent so many years of my life changed too, in small ways. A colleague who had laughed at a forwarded screenshot months before came by to say, "I didn't realize." "I'm sorry." He didn't demand absolution. He asked how to do better. That small request mattered. Lucia and I kept talking about online respect at bedtime. She would tell me, sometimes in the candor that only a child can have, what she heard in school. She asked questions that made me consider new things. "Abuelita, what would you have liked someone to say to you earlier?" I answered honestly, because honesty teaches as much as reprimand. Would have liked them to ask me first. Life resumed its ordinary duties: home, food, calls, bedtime notes. But there was a new rhythm and attentiveness to how we share each other's lives. The table became, again, a place of welcome but with lines that people honored. Financially things were as they had been, modest and careful. I kept working in ways that made sense to me, teaching some community classes and maintaining the blog that had become more of a conversation than a diary. The blog grew a little. The readers I did not know sent recipes and thank yous. The world beyond my window had more voices now that listened. Some neighbors returned to Sunday lunches, others kept their distance, and those distances had to be accepted with a level of calm I did not always possess. Distance is not necessarily hostility. Sometimes, it's protected breathing room. I learned to accept that some relations would not mend the way I hoped. That was painful, but it was part of living honestly. On days when the old pain rose like an old tide, would write in the table notebook and close the page with a small ritual, fold the corner, put the pen away, walk to the window. I told myself, you stirred the mole. You set the paper. You taught a lesson. This repetition was my anchor. There were practical outcomes too. A few of the people who had reacted most thoughtfully set up conversations with their own families. One of them, an old friend of Esteban, organized a small meeting about online respect at his workplace. It rippled outward in small, unexpected ways. Daniela, after months of careful conversations and private apologies, asked if I would help her with a recipe she wanted to recreate. We stood together in the kitchen one afternoon, and as she stirred the pot she asked 20 quiet questions about technique. Her interest was not performative, it was humble and earnest. It felt like a peace offering and a new beginning. I watched her hands and saw someone who was learning to repair, not with grand gestures but with small attentions. Gabriella and I made lists, practical things: how to back up files, how to lock albums, who to call if something reappeared. We labeled drawers and set reminders. These measures were small, but they created a protective architecture. I also took a step that felt both public and private. I wrote one more long piece about dignity and privacy and about how online humor often hides cruelty. I closed the post with a question directed to the reader. Have you ever been the one laughing? What will you do differently now? The comments were modest but thoughtful. People wrote about their parents, about teenagers who had been unkind, about the awkwardness of admitting you were wrong. A woman from another part of the country wrote that she had shown the post to her children and that together they had written apologies. Another man wrote that he had started a workplace policy about sharing private conversations. These were small triumphs, but they felt like a widening horizon. Months later, on a cool afternoon, I walked to the small school where Lucia had first asked me to come and speak. The teacher had invited me to another class, and this time there were older teenagers awkwardly earnest, fierce in their ideas, curious for ways to be better. I talked about boundaries, about consent, and about how humor can become a weapon. I listened as they asked sharp questions. I answered. They listened like people with capacity for change. After the class, a young man came up and said, "My grandfather died this year. Sometimes I laugh to hide the fear he's gone. I'm sorry." He was 30 years old, and his apology was a small, bright thing. I took his hand and told him it was brave to notice. We spoke about channels for grief and how to choose kindness. At home that evening, Esteban cooked dinner. He had learned the patience of the mole. "It is not the same as yours," he said honestly. "But it's mine." He passed me a small bowl. I tasted it and smiled. The flavors held intention, not mocking. Near my window the old watch ticked. The manila envelope sat on a shelf, quietly folded and labeled. It had not been a weapon. It was a ledger. It had allowed us to see the harm and to name it. My life did not return to a naive ease, but it found a steadier cadence. The conversations continued, some were painful, others offered new understanding. There were days I was proud and days I was tired. Both were true. One afternoon a neighbor I had once been distant with stopped by with a small plate of tamales. "Your story helped my brother," she said. "He learned to ask permission before he sent a joke. Simple, real, and enough." I kept writing. I kept cooking. I kept saying my piece when necessary. There were changes in the hospital too. A meeting on respect had been scheduled, small but official. People listened. People asked me, "Do you forgive?" Forgiveness is not a single moment. It is a practice, a long and patient lifting of the heart that often requires boundaries to stay healthy. I forgave in increments as accountability showed itself. Calls made, content removed, workshops attended, changed behavior. Not everyone earned forgiveness. Some relationships were altered permanently. This truth is heavy, but it is honest. There is dignity in accepting that some bridges cannot be fully rebuilt. I also learned to accept the good small, ordinary things that stitched me back together. Lucia's drawings, Gabriella's texts, Mrs. Mora's laughter on the stairs, Esteban's deliberate calls. These were the stitches of a mended life. A stranger once wrote to tell me that my story had helped her set boundaries with her son. She used the manila envelope image as a metaphor for keeping records and telling the truth. Her letter arrived the same week my blog passed a small milestone, 1,000 reads. It was not fame. It was a quiet sign that words had weight. At night, when the house was dark and the clock ticked steady, I would sometimes take the envelope down and run a fingertip along its edge. I would think of the woman I had been at the start, surprised, hurt, unsure. I would think of how she had grown into someone who could defend herself without making war. "Keep teaching," I would whisper, and the whisper felt like sustenance. I finished the last page of the notebook and closed it. There was ink in the margins. Speak. Protect. Teach. My hands, those hands that had stirred mole for decades, had learned a new craft, gathering proof, holding boundaries, repairing with careful action. They were hands that could cook and could call a friend. Both were necessary. The life I had built, simple, ambitiously ordinary, meant that I could choose what to keep and what to let go. I kept the recipe book and the notebook. I let go of the expectation that everyone would return to how they were. One late afternoon, Lucia set the life goes on, and so does the work of caring for it with dignity.